So one of the first things coming out of special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation is a leak to the Washington Post suggesting that President Trump is being investigated for obstruction of justice, something that triggered Mr. Trump to tweet out his impression of the whole process right now. Quote, "You are witnessing the single greatest witch hunt in American political history, led by some very bad and conflicted people." So has this process become a witch trial intent on unseating the president? Here now is Karl Rove, former Deputy Chief of Staff to George W. Bush and a Fox News contributor. Karl, good to see you. Is it a witch hunt?
You know, I'd be careful about using that phrase. Bob Mueller, my sense is an honorable man. The idea of being able to get the President of the United States indicted or convicted on a charge of obstruction of justice is absurd. The President of the United States is the head of the executive branch. He could have told Jim Comey,
that's right,
shut down the investigation of Michael Flynn.
Absolutely.
And
that was my first thought.
It would be entirely within his powers to do so. Would have paid a political price. But
right.
I've been talking to legal experts about this, and one of them said, took that theory that he didn't have the authority to do it. He said, what if John F. Kennedy had said to J. Edgar Hoover, I want you to shut down your investigation and surveillance of Martin Luther King? Would President Kennedy have been guilty of obstruction of justice?
Well,
no.
Karl, the main thing about this,
and
you alluded to it, is it just doesn't make sense. It was February 14th when Jim Comey said, the president said, I hope, you know, that General Flynn isn't prosecuted anymore, is let go, et cetera. He had, and then a month and a half later, in the middle of March, or at the end of March, actually, Comey said again to President Trump, you're not being investigated. So he himself, if Comey was so worried about obstruction of justice, he himself could have brought an investigation, which he didn't.
Sure. Absolutely. I'd add two more things. During the conversations with Comey, President Trump says, I hope you find out if the satellites, meaning some people connected with his campaign, if they did anything wrong. And then he says to Comey, and Comey repeats it, he says to him, I want you to get to the bottom of this Russian meddling thing. So, you know, look, the president had the ability to direct him to end any investigation he wanted. Clearly, a hope is not the same as I direct you to do this. Comey made the decision.
And it's the only time he ever mentioned General Flynn to Comey.
Right, right. And in addition to that, look, 18 U.S.C. 1505. Write that down, viewers, and go Google it. That's the statute involving obstruction of justice, and it requires a corrupt conduct involved. And so what was the corrupt conduct involved here? It would have to be that the president was somehow sharing in the profits that Mike Flynn got from the undisclosed
Well, and again, Jim Comey made his reputation as a prosecutor on bringing obstruction of justice charges. That's how he got Martha Stewart, after all. If he saw obstruction of justice in his February 14th conversation with the president, he would have brought it himself. But it leads me to wonder where this leak came from. And again, one of the things Mueller is supposed to be investigating is leaks. So apparently a leak has come out of his office saying something that couldn't be true.
Let's be careful about that. We don't know where it came from.
So where do you think it came from, Karl?
Well, I don't know, but I do know this. 5 different people tell the Washington Post that 3 people, the Director of National the Director of National Intelligence, the Director of the NSA, and an NSA deputy. So it could have come out of those agencies. And I don't think the FBI is going to be inclined. My experience has been they don't like leaks.
Okay.
And so my inclination is that this came out of either the
well, I hope it didn't come out of Mueller's office. Karl, I'm sorry to rush you, but I just got a chance for one quick question. I know that Mueller's an honorable guy. They said the same about Comey. They are good friends. Doesn't that put Mueller in a conflict of interest?
Well, I don't think so. But here's another thing. Comey, I've said this for a long number. The guy's a hot dog. That's not a very professional term, but he is a guy he's inclined to. He wants to be seen as the only honest guy in town. The testimony that he gave, for example, smearing smearing Attorney General Sessions by suggesting that there might be some unstated reason. We saw that tossed right back at the Attorney General by a partisan Democrat, saying, I don't know what the parameters that the Attorney General has on his recusal, when he was one of 6 people who got an email that said, in any and all matters connected with any current or future investigation of any campaign for president, don't talk to the Attorney General. So why he did those things, I think, is in keeping with the general tone of Comey. I'm the only honest guy, but they weren't true.
Karl Rove, we gave you the full answer, even though we ran out of time about a minute ago. Thank you very much, Karl. Good stuff. Melissa.